As if to illustrate his points, The Assassination of Olof Palme, Volume 1, excerpt. As if to illustrate his points, the whole time he spoke, his Adam's apple was swirling like an 8-ball teasing gravity around a corner pocket, coming to an abrupt halt when he finished a sentence, looking as if it just held its orbit rather than flying from his neck into the atmosphere, or like it was me, flung out of my circumambulations to a brink called Isola, Slovenia. To this point in my life, I had given very little thought to Slovenia. Probably it was analogous to some Dusseldorfer vaguely aware of Angermünde. Slovenia was a little chunk of Austria flaked off into the Yugo soup, a small bone that kept finding its way back onto your spoon. You get it between your teeth and spit it onto the table, and there it is again, right back on the spoon. So you spit it out again. Sure, I knew all about the Italians and the coast, the massacres, which seemed as far away from our own as Auschwitz, Capodistria, D'Annunzio, the Socha Front, the Julian Alps, the human fish in the Postojna cave, the wonders of Yugoslavia, Predjamski Grad, where Erasm succumbed to the cannonball while shitting, the Battle of Frigidas in the viticultural valley Vipava, the Bugs Bunny battle in which the Buria blew the Roman arrows back in their faces. I knew a Slovene conceit or two as well, like the Buria, as if they owned the fucking thing. Thing indeed. Demon wind, I say. They say it's born in Vipava, where all the houses have stones on the roof tiles. Obviously, none of them ever spent the night in Ploče. And of course, their territorial sulkings were a joke to anyone south of them. Too small a country to have the kind of perverse ambitions of giant fields like Poland or the Ukraine, they could only fret over the vast tracts ceded to Italy. Bye-bye Galicia. And Austria, bye-bye Klagenfurt. And of course Croatia, bye-bye several acres of Istria responsible for their most passionate sulk frets. The historically valuable sliver of land between the Dragonia and Mirna rivers, which, though history quite neatly confirms the judicious nature of the border, one would think the relatively vast death-scythe-shaped Croatia, with its long paradisiacal strip of island-pocked coast, would cough up generously, as of course anyone in Zagreb would gladly do if there weren't one single nationalist lunatic spitting at an imaginary spittoon of freedom in a tavern in Pazin. So Slovenia snatched her dessert off the plate of the Balkan War, EU membership. Just shut the fuck up about the boundaries, not one more word about Tito selling out the fringes to keep the center, and one might point out all the other fringes, which does go to suggest, paranoiac or otherwise, the Slovenes were truly fringe-fucked. Tito, a terse traitor for sure, and Cardell, that demented abstractionist, certainly a Gorizia giver. But life is what it is, name and form, hence the silence gorging up from Gorenska to the Tyrol, where the form is fitted with felt, green felty hats and knickers with their hunty habits and derelict dialects, leprechauns expelled from the Hitler Youth for farting in their steins. No, the boundaries will not change, at least not on the ground, not on the maps. Only in their minds, for as soon as the clock struck May 2004, the Slovenes spread word they had at last joined Europe. Quite a conjuring trick, joining a new continent without leaving the old one, which happens to be the same. I didn't understand. We all laughed at them with their, now that we've joined Europe. Where the fuck had they been, we wondered, for we knew we were in Europe the whole time. Even those who the Greeks claimed to claim, for even the Greeks, anti-Kronos as it may seem, felt comfortably nestled in Europe at the confluence of Pericles and Churchill, until I read Eyre and supposed that perhaps these Slovenes were truly not but Euro-Hindus, advanced in the philosophies of the Vedas, their foreign minister Rupel, name and form mingling rupee and ruble, if accident yet harboring meanings not entirely mysterious, slyly comprehending the shadow world behind name Europe, form continent, which is to say European Union eating up Europe, that little Slovene bite, a foreshadowy foretaste of the coming big bite names Eastern, Southern, former Soviet, especially Baltic Europe, forms rest of Europe, the monster behind the Iron Curtain exposed, murder ravenous, strands of flesh flying from the teeth, verdure, hamburger, anchovies, girly knickers, barking ravens, worms, navels, and coming this way. Not that I thought much about it, other than to be bemused that the Middle European, Magyars and Slovenes, wanted back in the news, distant from us. Us. Us? Who exactly is us? The north of the Greek and west of the Jew? Cannon to my skull, I admit I thought I was European as far as that goes. I speak more than a dozen European languages, including both Albanian and Croatian. In fact, come to think of it, I don't speak any non-European languages unless you include bastard English. But if you include bastards, I speak more than 50 languages. Let me dramatize. Yet I was suddenly cast from the name Europe to a form that had no name but the inferred not Europe, terra anachronismus. I had never been one of those teetotalers. War on occasion catapults a capable man to the fore, and let the point be made that 26 years of unrewarded toil, jail time, underground work sending Slavs to the brain brigades, guerrilla hardship, unwavering courage, loyal hounds, Richard Burton, the foresight to keep Churchill's stubby nubbies off Istria amounts to justification for Golio Tok's secret police jail time for even the best of Tito jokes, and all those trite tyranny turdlets, or else it doesn't. Who cares? Survival of the fittest implies the prerequisite bad breaks for the other fittest. But as a Yugoslav, I had a fondness for Yugoslavic Slavs, Slavism, and my vast enough region of Europe, what with its funny trumpets, rakias, forbidding orographics. Is it any wonder Stalin didn't invade? Shit, Tito knew better than anyone how he laughed when the Soviets blustered into Afghanistan. Maybe that's what killed him. It would have ruined the Red Tsar. Hungary? Nothing but a parking lot for tanks. Blistered dancing feet and sheep, fatalistic humor. Bring me back to Stalin, who so prized one of Tito's letters he kept it with his two other favorites. Beria was dying to see what he kept looking at in that drawer just before those rare howls of laughter that made Laventia's cock worm towards his peritoneal zone. Uncle Joe, if you keep sending people to kill me, I'm going to start sending people to kill you. Uncle Josip. All of which I imagine taking place in some vaster backdrop called Europe in the books I stole from libraries in cities, all of which, to list but three, Plovdiv, Monastir, Yaitsa, Sarajevo, Novi Sad, were, according to the English language Webster's Geographical Dictionary, stolen in Zagreb, abandoned in Niš, well within the bounds of the continent Europe, which had its more dignified origins straight to the south, of course, whatever you think of Pedernasties and Spartan soup, its industrial belchings to northwest, its provocateurs to the northeast, its southernmost point 3,000 kilometers west, highest point 3,000 kilometers east. Whoever would have thought my standing as a European anything but secure, even a Jew? But I'm not diving into that shtetl of dupes. I met an American on a train one time. He said he lived in Varna. I asked him the usual. Why would that be? He said, I was in graduate school and my mentor, the one true genius I ever knew, said, what do we need women for now that we have VCRs? I had a nervous breakdown and wound up in Varna. Name and form. Bureaucrats were making a mockery of continental drift, hastening a process that had previously required the subterranean toil of millennia. Meanwhile, Bootlick Bartov sits in a waiting room in Bratislava dreaming the form of his visa to England. Some of these matters I discussed with Ruggs just to have something to discuss. Others just to watch that 8-ball squirm about the pocket. Others not at all. Most memorably, he told me, "We Slovenes hate you Southerners from the guts, with the exception of the Croats, whom we love and envy in our guts and hate with our brains. As Slovakia awaits their turn, Slovenia, with which it is mistaken even by presidents, recently rounded up a community of gypsies not far from my home and packed them off to a concentration camp 100 kilometers closer to the EU. But where you're going, the Slovenes are less Slovene except for the ones who are more. And they hate Italians from the guts, except for the few who no longer care to distinguish a dirty Bosnian from an Italian baby killer. Gospod Novak, you will be a prodigal son. And you will find that every stereotype is absolutely true and entirely false. That Slovenia is no different from any place else and utterly unique. You may not agree with this, my good friend Istok, but I believe Tito left behind a legacy you will come to appreciate, and you will find it adhering to us Slovenes as well. A healthy disdain for authority. Nobody exterminates the conformism in man, but from one end of ex-Yugo to another you'll find, if not rebellion itself, a rebellious spirit, often made grotesque by the compressure of a country made tiny so that it exerts itself in such odd ways as rounding up gypsies. A rebellious spirit is talk, and if not, at least a permanence of distrust. You can love a man, you understand, but not a union. Let those be the final quoted words of Ruggs for now. On the road to Rijeka, where he would leave me to enter that altered universe, I tried without appreciable success and truly without loneliness, without trepidation, without pursuit, I would have appreciated any success, to avoid watching his Adam's apple, so voluble in his yakety profile, lest I begin to connect the phenomenon with the speaking of Slovene. Specifically, what I wished to avoid was overconsciousness of my own, less prominent frontal neckery as I spoke that infernally conjugable lingo. Not necessarily that I would give myself away, but I would never be free of my current limbo, remain a shadow, a demi-soul between Lazar and Novak, or develop a grotesque tic that would plague me the rest of my days. Some people can look across the dinner table at the dripping face of a leper and still suck down their gravy, some not. I prefer to avoid the table altogether and let the gods test me elsewise. These things are important. I don't know what to make of the atmospherics of the ride. We left a crisp, sunny, flat land, the outer patagels of Pannonia, to gradually enter a mist that grew ever denser, dense enough that Ruggs often had to slow to 30 kilometers. Let's stop there.